So first off, my son, this is a picture of my son, and Will, can you hold your hand up? He's here with me today. And this was obviously about 10 years ago. And the reason why I've started this off today is my career took a turn back about the time when Will was this age. And the story is true. He was crying in bed one night, and like, kids of 5 years old sometimes do. And I went in there, like fathers always do in response, and tried to calm him down. So I said, Will, oh, what's the matter? What's the matter? And he says, I'm afraid. And I said, well, what are you afraid of? And he says, well, I'm afraid of global warming. And it's kind of sad, but it's kind of funny too. And I said, well, like any good father, I tried to calm him down. So I said, well, Will, don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. And he looks up at me again. This time he's not just crying, but he's also angry. And he says, that's easy for you to say. You'll be dead. And as I look around in the room, there are a lot of us that are going to be dead when this particular situation becomes really odious, the whole question of climate change. So my work has been really influenced by that moment and other moments. For better or worse, is the responsibility of our generation, and particularly our generation of elected leaders, and particularly our generation of elected leaders at the municipal level, quite frankly, who bear the brunt of responsibility for doing something about that. So as Daryl knows, and Marlene, who I worked with very early in my career, that's been a motivation of mine to try to, working out of UBC, to translate some of the more important ideas around sustainability and work with communities and translate them into a form that people can understand, and to try to simplify what is essentially a complex set of interactions and then put them in a format that can be generally understood and talked about. So what I've tried to do at the twilight of my career is to simplify 25 years of thinking about this stuff into 7 simple rules. And I finally figured out, after 25 years, it's not that complicated. If you just get these 7 rules right, then you can get it done. And there are all rules that really apply at the local level, so you don't have to wait for the national government to get this stuff done, although you probably will need their help in certain respects. Next. So here's the big idea. When I started to try to figure this stuff out, and really in a serious way 10 or 15 years ago, I never thought I was going to be a train nut. I never thought I'd be one of these guys with gray hair, who just goes cuckoo about trains. But I've become a train nut in my later years, because after thinking about this for a long time, how do you take the North American city, the Canadian city, the U.S. city in particular, given what they look like and how they were formed and how they behave right now, what's the solution for getting to an 80% reduction in greenhouse gases by 2050? We got to do that, and we already blew off 10 years, right? The target was set in the year 2000. We're already at 2011. We have less than 40 years to get this job done. We have made zero progress, zero almost, in getting it done. So we've only got 40 years left now. And I finally figured out that this was, at least as best I could do, a really key part of the answer. It's trains of a particular kind. I'm going to explain why. Because it has to do with the first rule. So what we're going to try to do in 20 minutes is going to be really hard, but Darlene, cut me off if I'm at rule 4, that's okay. All right. What I finally kind of figured out through working with communities and really looking at them, thinking about them, is that pretty much all of our communities in Canada and BC and North America were streetcar city communities. They're very particular, and you don't find them in the other parts of the world. And still to this day, about half of all Canadians live in neighborhoods that were built during the streetcar period. And the rest of us live generally in neighborhoods that are pretty close to those streetcar city neighborhoods. So what does that mean? Let's look at the next one. Well, you know, it means that we actually live in urban places generally that used to use almost no greenhouse gases for us to get around. Now, the biggest single sector for greenhouse gas production is transportation, and the biggest single component of that is individuals driving their own car around all by themselves. But there was a time prior to like 1940 where we used to get around pretty much with zero greenhouse gas, and cities very much the same as they are today. And this was the period of the streetcar city period. We don't have a laser pointer, do we?
You have one here.
Oh, good, thanks. So, conscious of Darlene's machete that's going to cut my head off, I can't say too much except that these modes of transportation are basically zero greenhouse gas modes, and they tend to be rail, electric. Trolley buses are up there too, so if you're in love with rubber, okay, go with that. But in order for us to get back to the state where we were and get an 80% reduction, the hypothesis here is that we need a radical reinvestment in zero greenhouse gas modes of transportation, and the two best to choose from are like trolley buses and streetcars. And the cool thing about that is that modern streetcar actually is the cheapest per passenger mile way to go. A lot of people say buses are cheaper than streetcars. Yeah, in year one, but not in year 30. So if you use a 30-year amortization and you include the cost of fuel, the driver, the replacement of vehicles, streetcars last 50 years, buses only 10. It turns out the streetcars, isn't that funny? They're cheaper. All right. And, you know, this is the place we live. Not too much needs to be said, but the first thing we did in our neighborhoods, and the city of North Vancouver is certainly this way, was to send the streetcar up, then build a bunch of rude structures, and then following 10 years. And eventually we have this fabric. This is 4th Avenue. And this is a very classic, characteristic streetcar city history. First the transit, then the smaller structures. Now the 4-story buildings are starting to appear 80 years later. Next. The other point on the streetcar city thing is, you know, we as citizens and your taxpayers, your ratepayers and so forth, people you respond to, only have a limited amount of money, and we only have a limited number of years to get to this point of restoring the streetcar city, if you accept the hypothesis. We're spending money in maybe the wrong ways when we considered putting a $3 billion subway line underneath Broadway to get out to UBC so my students can get there 10 minutes faster than they would otherwise. I love my students, but that's a lot of money. And if you took the same amount of money, you could actually, for the same amount of money or less, restore the entire streetcar system, tram system that used to exist, shown in the dark lines, and actually extend it, shown in the dashed lines. And Darrell, of course, there's your city, which had its own very interesting streetcar line in those days. And in the lower one, of course, is we came across this bridge this morning, $3 billion to do this one piece of road. For south of Fraser communities, you could get that much modern tram system instead. Next.
Right.
So can we go back at this is cool and very interesting too. The other thing that relates to this is our aging demographic. We have a situation here shown in the light blue where the age cohort of us baby boomers, we're spreading, you know, in the middle, and we're also spreading in this demographic pyramid. It only gets worse by 2050 according to Urban Futures, because the 65 and over cohort is going to go from 12% now to 22%. So I will have the next one. Next slide, thanks. So the guys that used to be out on the street corner selling crack in that's really what we're gonna have, and these people have to get around. They have to be in neighborhoods. You don't want these people driving their Buicks. Next.
It's not these people, it's us now, Patrick.
Yeah, I know, it's us. You know, if we last that long, you don't want me and my Buick then. All right. So that one takes the most amount of time, but I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to go. So the other ones are sort of very similar. Interconnected street system. Next slide, please. And this is just an example of, this is true of our bigger or smaller communities, but they do have this very characteristic pattern of the streetcar city. It's different than the post-1950s suburban pattern, but not entirely. Next. It has many more intersections, which tends to reduce trip distances and the use of the automobile for scientific reasons I don't have the time to discuss. Next. But if you don't have a system of interconnectivity, what you do is have a funnel of all trips to these intersections, which become magnets for big box commercial, 10 lanes wide, including their turn lanes. Your engineers will tell you that you absolutely have to have these, and within the constraints of the problem, they are right, but it's a condition of having not an interconnected system. Next. See, that was quick. We're at 3. That was better. We're getting better. So another thing that relates to this streetcar city pattern and interconnectivity is things are close at hand. So 5-minute walking distance to commercial services and transit. And if you can get that system to work, people will walk and commercial services will survive without the need for huge parking lots. Next. So will your transit system work. It'll pay for itself, which it doesn't in other circumstances. Also, the appropriate densities, and the rule of thumb on this is 10 dwelling units per acre, or about 15 dwelling units per gross hectare. That means inclusive of streets, which not all communities come up to, but this one certainly does. This is 17 dwelling units an acre. This is a Kitsilano area, which gives you the right amount of students within an 8 to 10 minute walking distance for your elementary schools, which will have 400 students in them, or 2 classrooms of each grade. See, all these pieces of this streetcar city fabric fit together. Next. Unfortunately, in a lot of our remoter communities, we do this. This is a very ordinary example of, it's an 8-minute walking distance from one edge of the school grounds to the classroom, and when you get inside, it's 2,000 students, and there's physically no difference between the architecture of this school and your average medium security prison. Next. Okay, so number 4, jobs close to home. I'm sure I'm not going to make it through all these, which is a shame, but this one, another piece of the formula, you want jobs integrated into this system, right? It doesn't do you any good if your house is 5-minute walking distance to transit if your job is a 20-minute hike from where the station is or whatever. So it all has to balance. Next. A lot of our older areas have, and this is a great example from Portland, this is their industrial area, very dense configuration of jobs knit within this streetcar city fabric of interconnected street systems. Next. And a lot of our cities have these opportunities that have turned into strip commercial areas to reinvigorate this as job centers, and that makes the streetcar city idea work even better. Next. I did a project for some folks down in Portland to show how this might be deployed over large and greenfield neighborhoods, showing in this case the purple areas are industrial type jobs or business park type jobs, while in the darker tan areas, those are the commercial areas, all again knitted within streetcar city fabric. This image is kind of interesting because nature plays a big role in this particular site. So you can see the what would you call it, the compromise between the streetcar city idea and a natural fabric in this one. Next. So totally related to jobs, the other end of this is that you need a diversity of house types. Next. And fortunately, some of these slides are in here to show people from the States who don't know anything about any of this stuff. But the city of Vancouver and North Vancouver and other places have found good ways to retrofit. This is the original structure, and there's a nice new little structure right next to it. Sits on 15 feet. Very nice way to infill a neighborhood. Next. 3 units in what was once a single-family bungalow. This is Kitsilano. And of course, secondary suites. This is the real untold story of Vancouver. Is the only thing that makes it affordable at all is that there's tens and tens and tens of thousands of rental units. They may not be the Taj Mahal, but you can still get a bed for about $600 to $700 a month. Next. And some good progress in different typologies coming together. There's actually 3 land uses stacked on top of each other. Big box commercial, office, and then townhouses. Next. And laneway houses. I think this audience knows quite a bit about that. Next. And an important point, you know, if you're dealing with NIMBY or people in the neighborhoods are very concerned about their neighborhoods changing, it doesn't do you very good if you come into that neighborhood with something that looks like a spaceship and try to drop it in next to something from the Craftsman period. They really don't like that. So architecturally, it's very important to have stylistically a compatibility between what is there already and what you intend to impose. And this is actually 25 dwelling units an acre project, which is really quite high. Next. Compared to what's across the street. And here you see it in an aerial view. But I think architecturally it works. Next. How many more minutes you going to give me?
I'm going to give you 5.
Good.
Daryl's promised you a few minutes too, but I told him he was being too kind.
He's a nice guy. But he gets my vote.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, he gets my vote for that. Well, I think that's going to work out. Number 6 then is linked areas, areas of parks. And, you know, this kind of unrelenting fabric of interconnected street systems and, you know, a 5-minute walking distance and all that, it can be unrelenting, but there's some great examples that show where natural systems intersect with that. And I did allude to that in the Damascus example. Here's another example of that from another part of the world. Next. This is in Boston, and this is an 1870s view of a part of Boston now called the Emerald Necklace or the Fenway. It's near Fenway Park if you've ever gone there. And it's a park system designed by Frederick Law Olmsted. It looks like Dresden after the bomb in this view, but this is actually one of the construction photos of this interconnected system, which solved a whole bunch of environmental and infrastructure problems. Transportation, sewage, drainage, fresh water are all part of this plan. So it's an engineering project which in time, in only 30 years, becomes a landscape project. So it really shows the power of the landscape to return, particularly in places like ours where this is actually a rainforest, right? So things come back very quickly. Next. I'm going to skip this one next. To get to the last one, very tightly aligned with that, rule number 6 is this one, number 7. We live in a world, and a lot of your communities are dealing with this one, where what we do in terms of approving a new street has a direct influence on whether a fish lives or dies in the receiving stream. So this is very crucial rule. In some ways it might be number 1. Darlene knows that she and I got together on this many years ago as an important feature of sustainable communities for BC. Next. And what that really means, it means basically letting the water go back into the soil. A lot of ways to do that. In our original forests landscapes in BC, that's how it worked. And the water that went into the dirt would eventually show up in the stream, clean and at the right temperature. Next. But when we do it in conventional ways, we take water that went into the dirt and we put it into a pipe and it goes right into the stream, and sometimes at quantities 100 times or more than it did during that first hour or so, which destroys the streams. Next. However, there are ways to do that, and we've experimented with some. Next. And my best project in North America, although earlier on we did the Headwaters project that Darlene might remember that led to the East Clayton project in Surrey, BC. But this one was more complete because these are 100% infiltration streets. Next. Which have a different construction detail, and of course all this is in the book, which you'll have to rush out and buy. But what I want to bring your attention to is that this is a very rainy day here, and the wetness here is a normal street. It's raining just as hard on this street, but you can see the water is disappearing entirely, and even water that's running off of this conventional street is also disappearing within a few inches of hitting our street. Next. Okay, so warm-up is over. We're going to suggest that these and other 7 rules are a big part of what was brought to the table and discussed with the citizens and officials in the city of North Vancouver. In the context of them, and it was a great honor to be invited to partner and participate on this one, Mr. Mayor, in the context of their having being forward-thinking enough to be thinking in sustainability terms and knowing it was going to take a number of decades to get there. So the plan that you're looking at is actually a 2050 plan to get to 80% reduction in greenhouse gas, and then actually a 100-year plan to get to a 0% reduction. And the plan is very explicit. We're not suggesting, nor is the mayor, that every single one of these buildings will be built exactly that way, but it's a demonstration of what it could look like when the city, even at its present rate of growth, triples in population eventually by 2100, assuming no changes. What would a city that goes from roughly 45,000 to 150,000 look like? Next. And crucial to all this was to understand the greenhouse gas consequences. So this is how the city operates right now, and the greener you are, the better you are. And as you might expect, the closer you are to urban services and the higher the density, the better you are. You're less gooder as you go away from that main spine. So next. But if we get to the 2100 condition and the density, the new citizens and residents of the city of North Vancouver are strategically disposed in that landscape, as well as jobs, commercial services, and transit, we can expect this kind of performance without major changes in transportation technology and without making major assumptions about, you know, solar panels on the roof or all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think those things may come along, but this is just the consequences of changed land use and transit. And one key thing to mention is a citywide extension of the existing district heating system, which is very important.
Great.
So that's it. So I'll turn it over to
Thank you.